Hello and welcome to Lunch with Lee. I'm your host Shane Lee to a very special edition of the Newcastle District Cricket Association Grand Final Lunch. Today on the show, Jason Dizzie Gillespie, a former Australian cricketer, coach and fast bowler. He played 71 tests, 97 one-day internationals, taking 259 test wickets, 142 one-day international wickets, has best figures of 7 for 37 and a highest test score of 201 not out. As night watchman. He is the first acknowledged Aboriginal male to play Test cricket and coach Zimbabwe, involved in the IPL coaching, Yorkshire, Papua New Guinea and Pakistan. He's a vegan, he has 5 children, and when he had a mullet and beard, people thought the Lord Jesus Christ had returned. Welcome, Dizzie.
Thanks, Shane, and thank you everyone for having us. Really looking forward to this chat.
And Paul Blocker-Wilson, a former Australian cricketer, umpire and fast bowler. He played 1 Test for Australia, 11 one-day internationals, 51 first-class matches, taking 151 wickets. He was born in Newcastle. Do I hear a cheer for that? Boom. And just recently retired from the Australian panel of umpires. And has anyone ever seen Paul Wilson and Rex Hunt in the same room at the same time? Dead ringer. Or is it the one person? Welcome, Blocker. Thank you. Now, I thought I'd set up this interview with when we all first met. Dizzie's 49, turns 50 in April, I think. Blocker's 53, I'm 51. So when we started playing cricket, this ad was on TV. You can get it walking, you can get it talking. You can get it milking a cow. Oh, matter of fact, I've got it now. You know, a hard-earned thirst needs a big cold beer. And the best cold beer is Vic, a long cold Vic. Does everyone remember those days? Yeah, when men were men, we could call it Lebanese bread, not bread of Middle Eastern appearance. And when it wasn't okay for a man to enter into a female boxing competition in the Olympics and punch the shit out of a girl. Not cool. Things have changed, and that's when we all started playing cricket, and the world has changed a bit since we started. And I'll start with you, Dizzie. We sort of first met circa 94 at the Cricket Academy. Let's take us back to those days, mate.
Yeah, well, Shane, geez, you're taking us back, aren't you? As I went to the academy in 95, and I remember you were there in 94, and obviously I was in the age groups and just coming through doing a bit of extra training, and you see the academy lads all training at the old Adelaide Oval at the time under the tutelage of the late Rod Marsh, and you kind of aspired to want to be basically what you guys were doing, being at the academy, which was really cool. It was a real feather in your cap if you got that opportunity. So that was certainly something that I wanted to aspire to do, is to attend the academy and learn and get better at cricket. And that's where we crossed paths. Yeah.
Well, I remember Rod Marsh saying to us, guys, get your academy formal wear on, which was probably a polo shirt and slacks. We're going to go to the Commonwealth Bank, who was our major sponsor then, boardroom. And Rod said, I want you to all think about this. I want you to stand up in the boardroom, because one day if you do represent your country, you'll have to go into the corporate world and you'll have sponsors. I want you to stand up and say who you are, why you're here and what you're going to do. And I remember saying, I'm Shane Lee from New South Wales. I've played a couple of Shield games at that stage. And my goal is to be the next all-rounder for Australia. And Jason Dizzie Gillespie, who only at that stage, you were bowling quite medium pace but swinging it.
I was bowling about 115k an hour at the time, I think.
And you stood up and said, my name's Jason Gillespie, and Rod Marsh told me I've either got to swing the ball another metre or I'm going to bowl 10 yards quicker. And he bowled fucking 20 yards quicker.
Well, you've got to have your aspirations and your goals. And, from age 7, Shane, I've always been asked, what did you want to do with your life? And from age 7, after watching Australia play on cricket on TV, watch the great Dennis Lilly come in and bowl, from that moment, my whole goal in life was to play Test cricket for Australia. There was no ifs, no buts, no maybes. That's what I wanted to do. And look, I'm obviously very fortunate to be able to do that, but that never wavered. Kids want to be firemen or policemen or anything like that. I didn't want to do anything like that. I just wanted to do what those guys were doing on TV, and try to bowl like Dennis Lilly. That was my whole goal in life, yeah.
And you did it bloody well, mate. The man on the left of me here, Paul Blocker-Wilson, as I mentioned, local boy. Just run everyone through that story. It is a well-known story, but it's still hard to believe that you didn't make the junior squads coming through. The Cricket Academy was there, and you just packed up what sort of car did you have at that stage? You packed that up and drove overnight and shut up the Cricket Academy and said to Rod Marsh, I'm here, I want to train. And he said, where are you from in Adelaide? He said, I'm from Newcastle. And you drove all the way here. Talk us through that story.
Yeah, I mean, Rod and I like to tell different stories to throw a bit of mayo on, as you know. And it was actually the train, and then the train then bus into Adelaide.
Okay.
Really good mate of mine now, who's actually a CEO for a company in Hong Kong these days. He was on a badminton scholarship with the South Australian Sports Institute.
Do they exist?
So it does, but generally when you see him, he doesn't look like a badminton player, to be quite frank. Anyway, he was based in Adelaide, so I sort of arranged, I sent a letter off to the academy prior to me turning up saying, look, keen to do this, X, Y, Z, you know, if I can spend a couple of weeks and bring that program back to Newcastle and put it into place for the next district season. And of course, we used to have the demandables at Kidman Park. The Sports Institute had the cricket and the cycling program. And Jude Mackay, who was the secretary at the time, was basically the person who ran the show, really, because I don't think Rod or Freddie or Donny were capable of doing that. So I've turned up. Jude said, "Oh, it's great to see you." You know, and anyway, I went and saw Rod. Rod basically told Jude to tell me to piss off, send him home. Jude said, well, you can't do that. He's turned up from Newcastle. And I was quite larger than this and at the time. So, okay, I let him to come in. And, of course, those doorways were quite small. And it's fair to say when I came in the doorway, I filled the doorway up. And he thought, oh, shit, yeah, sure, come in, sit down.
Yes, I know that.
What would you like, coffee, tea? And then sort of my relationship with Rod started then, and he was an enormous mentor and friend, really, from that point onwards. He just, as you guys know, he was very much about don't take shortcuts, just wanted to work hard, kept it simple, and I think for all three of us, I'd say in one way, shape or another, we used that analogy as we went through our careers.
Dizzie, I mentioned in the intro that you're the first Australian Indigenous Test cricketer to be properly acknowledged, which is huge. Your dad's Indigenous. Your mother's Greek background?
Yes.
So was it true that at one point you tried to get the 2% home loan? And they said no, you earned too much money.
That is so much mayo, Shano. That is absolute nonsense.
So I thought if they did do that, the Greek side would kick in and say, I'm not going to fucking pay it back anyway.
No, fair. No, absolute mayo on that. Don't believe a word he says, ladies and gentlemen. But no, look, something, obviously, it was a really unusual time because I remember Robert Crash Craddock put this big story out that I was the first acknowledged Aboriginal cricketer that has represented Australia. And that absolutely shocked me. I had no idea. I just assumed that I was one of many.
Yes.
So it was well known in our family. Obviously, Dad was CEO of Aboriginal Legal Rights in South Australian Northern Territory. And my brother to this day is a field officer at ALRM. So it's always just been part of who we are. And obviously as a family, we're incredibly proud. And so it probably just took me a bit by surprise just how it was taken, and being the first acknowledged cricketer just surprised me because I'd naively assumed that there were a number of people, players that had represented Australia with Indigenous heritage.
And Blocko, you became a real journeyman, so I'm trying to work out your background here because I think he's been to more clubs than the Deltones, you know. But just give us, you started in Newcastle, give us the circus sort of route you've been on.
Yeah, no, my wife says I'm a bit of a club prostitute, to be honest. It's the best way to describe it. So I started here with the Southern Lakes Cricket Club, which is now Title Workers. So that's effectively my home club where I learnt my cricket. In Sydney, I played for the Manly Warringah Cricket Club for a couple of years, and then that's while I was at the academy. So it was that time that we had to go back to our home state in between our appearances for the academy and playing the second 11s. So they were Manly for 2 years, and then whilst it was a Manly, I negotiated to go to Adelaide at the end of my 2-year stint with the academy. So I played with the Sturt Cricket Club.
Yep.
Then with the Adelaide University Cricket Club, which he and I have so many battles over that argument over many years. Spent 8 years at that club before I went to Perth. I played for the Melville Cricket Club for a couple of years. And then when my first class career finished with Melville, I actually then became captain coach of the Rockingham Mandurah Cricket Club. And then I've got 2 or 3 in England as well, folk, if you want me to keep going on with that. But I've got quite a few clubs, to be honest. The Bunbury Cricket Club, the Lashings, there's quite a few in there, I think. Tring Park, Brighton and Hove Cricket Club as well. So there's another one. So
you got more hats than the guy that won the charity award over here. Like, did most charity work.
had to build a new wing in the house to put the hats up, yeah.
No, fantastic. Hey, Dizzie, I want to start. Clearly, when I read the stats out at the start, mate, your record for Australia is up there with the best, mate. 259 Test wickets. You were so scary when you bowled. But the thing that always comes back, you're 201 not out as night watchman. Like, who let you go in?
The number one Test batsman in the world at the time. Right, strap yourselves in, ladies and gentlemen. So we won the first Test against Bangladesh in Dhaka. We're 1-0 up in the series. I hit the winning runs, no surprises there. And we get to Chittagong. We lose the toss, we find ourselves in the field. This wicket, ladies and gentlemen, was as flat as can get. So you had to be a good bowler to take wickets on it. I managed to do my job. We bowled Bangladesh out for 190, I think. And I did my job, 3 for 11 off 5 overs. Pretty happy. Go into the change rooms, take boots off, feet up, thinking, beautiful, watch the boys bat. For a couple of days, happy days. I get a tap on the shoulder. Just as the openers, Jakesy and Matty Hayden are going out to bat, I look up and it's our captain, our number one Test batsman in the world. And he says, Diz. And I say, Rick. He says, I can't do it. I said, what do you mean you can't do it? He said, mate, you've seen conditions have changed, like in an instant. You know, all of a sudden it's overcast. The wicket for some reason has changed. So it's all of a sudden a snake pit. I can't go out and face these Bangladesh bowlers. You're going to have to do my job for me. I said, Rick, I just took 3 for 11 off 5 overs, mate. I've done my job. How about you go out and do your job? Diz, put your effing pads on. Right, yes, sir, no problem. So no sooner had I strapped my pads on, the wicket fell. Matty Hayden succumbed to the pressure out there, obviously.
That fearsome Bangladesh
facing Abdul Razak, left-arm spinner, household name, one of the best left-arm spinners I've ever faced. And so I think, shit, I better get out there. So I stride out, take guard, managed to negotiate that evening. Then the next day, we go out, I walk out with Phil Jakes. He's naturally quite nervous. Conditions are pretty tricky out there by now, but being the senior player, although he was an opening batter and averaged 50 in first-class cricket, you know, he's quite rightly to be nervous. You know, I've got the experience in the subcontinent, having scored a lot of runs there, been in countless partnerships, the glue that held the partnerships together many a time with some of the greats of the game. So I had to nurse him through a bit. We batted for a while, then Phil just got out to Mohammad Rafiq, another wonderful left-arm spinner, household name, and out strides Ricky Thomas Ponting. And he, again, is decidedly nervous. His record in the subcontinent is probably not as good as it is in other parts of the world. So he's just, Diz, look, I need your help here. I said, look, cool, Rick. I've done this before, mate. It's all good. No stress. So he starts batting. I'm on about 20 when he walks in. He brings up his 50, and I've moved to 22. But as I said, I'm the glue holding this partnership together. And then there was a moment, ladies and gentlemen, where I knew I could not go back into that dressing room. I might have run out Ricky Ponting. When I say might, I did run out Ricky Ponting. So to paint you a real quick picture, I'm facing left-arm spinner Mohammad Rafiq, one of the best left-arm spinners to play the game. He comes into bowl. I go forward and play the most magnificent forward defence. It squirts off the outside part of my bat behind point. And I'm admiring my forward defence. I look up. Ricky's halfway down the wicket. So I'm looking at this. I'm looking him. I'm looking there. And I'm thinking there's only one thing I can do. No. Stayed in my crease. No dramas. Little did I know that he was a left-handed fielder. It's literally bobbed up, kind of thrown down the stumps. Now, Ricky, I mean, it took him a while to turn. He's got the turning circle, the QE2, so it took him a while. And he's running back. He's run out by 6 feet. Shano, 6 feet he's run out.
Gone.
He keeps going. He's running, keeps going. And
He did a shit.
I heard Dizzy, and I heard a word that rhymes with fire truck a number of times.
Yeah.
Then I saw him walk off the ground. He's smacking his bat, and I heard all sorts of commotion. I heard Dizzy again. It come up a few times. And that's when I couldn't go back into that dressing room, Shano. So,
Well, it's very well known that you've, since that moment when you brought up your 200, you remind Mark Wall constantly whose highest test score was 142, I think.
yeah, so Junior, he was my original teammate, roommate.
Yep.
My first couple of tours to the subcontinent. And I knew Junior's highest test score was 153 not out.
153, yep.
So in the aftermath of the greatest innings in the history of the game, ladies and gentlemen, I decided to just ring Junior because, every day's a school day, isn't it? So you want to get better, you want to learn. So I ring Junior. Junior, Diz, how you going, mate? Yeah, good, Diz, how you going? Yeah, well done on the test series. Yep. Yeah, cool, June. Family good? Yep, no worries. June, just out of my curiosity, just for my learning, just wondered when you batted in the 160s in a test match, how did you find it? Because not only was I physically tired, but mentally I found it a real struggle. But I managed to fight my way through and get to 200. I just wondered how you did that. Silence in the phone. Junior, you there? F off, Dizzie.
I love it. Now, Blocker, I want to ask you, the great thing, and I mentioned how I start off with the VB ad and the world has changed, and the great thing we did when we played cricket, you play hard and fair on the field, but at the end of the game you'd have a beer, right? And you enjoy each other's company and you'd settle your discrepancies. But mate, can you think who are your favourite teammates? I mentioned the number of teams you played for. You've got a few to choose from, but who are the favourite guys you really enjoyed playing with?
Well, besides the two of you sitting here,
That's very nice.
we had a number of characters in South Australia, as Diz knows. So they were the days that it's fair to say, we did enjoy ourselves on and off the field. It's fair to say. There was one game that was raised the other day by a CA journo, actually. It was a game that we had in Hobart. One of the greatest social trips that either one of us have ever been on. This particular game at Tassie, we bowled first day. Tassie was 7 or 8 down. Then it rained for 2 days, and then we actually won the game outright on day 4. So to bring it back is that we declared naught for naught. There was an agreement between DC Boone and Jamie Siddons, our captain, to what the target would be, and we ended up winning the game, I think, with 10 overs to go. We'd only actually been playing cricket for a day and a half. And I say that story because the characters we had on that team were this guy here, P. McIntyre, T. May, D. Lehman.
That team is as sick as pleurisy.
G. Blewett, the list goes on. And the story goes, we were bowling, so started day 2. The forecast wasn't great. Jeff Hammond, the great Bomber Hammond, said, look, guys, forecast's not great. I'll go down the ground and I'll let you know whether we're going to start on time. It's fair to say the first night was a reasonably social night the night before. So we're all hoping we weren't playing because most of us hadn't got up till about 9 o'clock. Anyway, there's this hurried phone call, guys, you've got to get down, we're starting on time. So we all get down the ground, all get a struggle to get the creams on, out we go. It rains. Literally, the moment we walk out the ground behind the umpires, rains. Rains for the whole day. Mid-afternoon, back down the same pub again, on it all night. Bomber said, right, I'll do it again. I'll go down and make sure that we don't embarrass ourselves. Guys, we're starting on time. Shit. Down we go again. Same thing, through the gate, bang, rains again all day. South Australia, as we did, we've got a great platform already. Okay, we're back out again. So straight down the same pub, on again. We actually started on time the next day and all the declarations happened and away we went and won the game. So there's some of the characters. With the WA, I play with the guys like Dimmy Mascarenas, Adam Voges, Duncan Spencer. If anyone remembers Duncan Spencer, who was now as a cut snake, one of the greatest people off the field, but absolutely.
And bowled fast.
Very fast.
High 150s, yeah.
Yes. And the Adelaide University Cricket Club I go back to is one of the clubs I remember that was one of the most social clubs ever. It was literally play it hard on the field, play it hard off the field, and that's the way we went. So great characters in that lot.
And Dizzy, so since you've retired, you've taken a coaching role. And I mentioned a few at the start, but you've coached Zimbabwe, Pakistan, Papua New Guinea. Do you just like going to places where there's serious political unrest, or where are you going to coach next? The Gaza Strip?
So I was coaching basically like a state team in Zimbabwe, the Midwest Rhinos. So that was a really good learning curve for me as a coach. Taught me a lot about man management, we're in a third world country. We were dealing with a lot of well, let's face it, there wasn't a lot of money in the game in Zimbabwe, so there's a hand-to-mouth existence for a lot of players, and cricket wasn't, even though they were professional and first-class players, putting food on the table was probably more urgent matters. So I always remember, I tell this story, I was driving to training one day. It was about 40 minutes before training was scheduled to start. I'm driving through the centre of the town of Kwekwe, which was where our team was based, and I just see this big lineup at the bank, because there's obviously a lot of issues with money in Zimbabwe. The banks don't necessarily have all the money in the bank for people, so people tend to draw their money out straight away. And I'm just looking along this line. It's about 200 metres long going down the street, and our training kit was red and black. And I'm seeing every 10 metres, I'm seeing a red and black training kit. And I'm thinking, there's our opening batter, and there's our fast bowler, there's our wicky. I don't reckon they're getting to training on time here. So you just had to acknowledge that there were some things a little bit more important than cricket, and learning how to manage personalities. Obviously, racially, there's a lot of different things you have to navigate through. So I learnt a hell of a lot. I obviously learned a lot about actually the technical side of coaching, but the man management of being a leader was probably the thing I took away the most from Zimbabwe. You mentioned Papua New Guinea. I was there as interim coach for a couple of months. I were in between coaches. I said I'd help out. And then, you mentioned Pakistan. So, yeah.
Well, the question I want to ask about Pakistan, you mentioned to me when I caught up with you in Adelaide that you knew your time was probably going to be up soon when you, as coach, you weren't invited to the team meeting.
Yeah, that's about right. So in essence, I remember having to ask the captain as he's walking out to the toss with the team sheet, who's playing today? And because it was, I actually had to put a message on the WhatsApp group to the boys, because as a coach, you make things available. Coaches are available. You have the vision available, conversations individually and as batting groups, bowling groups, and the like. And you want to offer these opportunities in the days leading up to the game, but there was none of that because the coaches were not included in anything from the selector and the captain. So that was really interesting. So yeah, just on the morning of the game, mate, it was that 2 weeks where I was asked to do the one-day stuff was fantastic because in a way, it was frustrating from a coaching perspective because I felt I wasn't really doing anything, but at the same time, I just got to catch up with all my mates who were in commentary around the country on the grounds because I was doing nothing else. So it was a bizarre old time, but look, I wish Pakistan all the best. They had great rapport with the players. Players are great. Players are great to deal with. Always easy to deal with. There were just some things, some frustrations higher up that I made clear that it wasn't ideal.
Yeah. Look, I want to go now from, I mentioned you went from a player to an umpire, and I remember playing with you a few times when you were bowling, the big, angry, fast bowler, and the umpire would say not out, you'd turn around and say a few things back. You're now on the other side, umpire. How'd you deal with an angry, fast bowler?
Well, I sort of gave them what Darryl Hare used to give to all of us. He'd give them a godfall on the way past and tell them he was bowling and I was umpiring, and we just got on with it. Yeah, it's an interesting transition. Poacher turned gamekeeper, basically. I think in a way because of how you played and how some of your teammates played, you took that on board going to umpiring. Is that how would I deal with that if I'm umpiring? And for me, it was more about recognising it before it happens. Yeah. So where I felt as though when I developed a really good skill was that I could see some of these fast bowlers that were starting to steam. Yeah. Just having that little quiet conversation sort of on the way back to the... One of those was Doug Bollinger, which shouldn't surprise any of us.
Bollinger by name, Spew by nature.
Talking about VB and kissing the wrong badge, Dougie Bollinger. Just on the way back, have a word to him, and all that's really say to him, Doug, you're better than this bloke. And I really do want to get home quickly. So if you concentrate on bowling properly, we can get home quickly. Yeah. Worked a treat. There. So it was more about having that little quiet word is what I felt I had to do.
And Blocker, growing up, you were, at the end of your career, regarded as one of the most determined cricketers. Just leaving from here and deciding to pack up and move your whole life to Adelaide on a whim. Who were your heroes growing up?
The same we've mentioned before. Dennis, I think us growing up, Lily Marsh Chapel, Craig McDermott, funnily enough, sort of right when he started. He came at the same time as, so we mentioned Dutchie. Dutchie Holland played his first test with David Boone, who was a guest speaker here last year. And Craig McDermott is around that place. So he sort of we were watching a lot more cricket because we had one of our legends of our club playing for Australia. So guys in that era as well were people I looked up to quite a lot. Jeff Lawson's another one who was, again, a teammate of Dutchie's at New South Wales and Australia. So they were still the ones I watched at the time. But Lily and see Craig McDermott as a young bloke starting were ones that I looked at straight away.
And Dizzie, what about you, mate? Obviously, you mentioned DK Lilly, but you play with the likes. So let's tell a few Warnie stories. That always goes down well.
Oh, the King. Yeah. No, we called him the King because he insisted on it. Look, Warnie was a wonderful teammate. His attitude was a never say die, never give up attitude, and that's what we absolutely loved about him. We were always in the contest, and being one of the best spinners that ever played the game. Having him and McGrath in the side. You always had that degree of comfort that, we know we can probably bowl sides out here, and those guys will never give up. But, yeah, Warnie, I suppose, but one of my favourite stories of Warnie was, obviously he was a big football fan, AFL fan.
St Kilda, yep.
So the Mighty Saints, I think he played a reserves game for them. I mean, he always used to tell us that he's a footballer in a cricketer's body. He was so obsessed with his footy, and he loved nothing more than... whenever we had a lot of people would come into the change rooms, whether like sports stars and people in TV movies would come in from time to time and rub shoulders with the players, and naturally everyone would go straight to Warnie, and rightly so. He's a king, he's a legend. This one day at the Gabba, early in the summer, the King got wind that a couple of the Brisbane Lions players were coming into the change rooms, so. Normally, Warnie's was last off the ground after a fielding day, and he'd come off, and he'd wander in late. Obviously, everyone loved him, and he'd sign autographs for kids. He was really good like that. But this particular day, he's off like a shot. Stumps are drawn, and the King is racing off the ground.
That's Warnie's management now, actually.
So he's racing off like a shot. We all look at each other, what's the King doing? And they realise, the AFL boy's coming in, he wants to impress them and all that sort of stuff. Any chance of getting your phone? Or? Yeah.
He's back.
And so we go in and we're subjected to an absolute scene in the corner. Like the King has got his trousers off, he's got ice pack on the knee, he's got a doig hanging out of his gob, and he's got a beer in his hand. We'd never seen this before because Warnie, to preface his story, didn't like beer. That's the biggest misconception. Everyone assumed he hated beer. And so we're looking at this scene, looking at each other going...
He actually drank Madurian lemonade. That was his drink.
He did drink Madurian lemonade. And so we're looking at this scene, no one's saying anything. And then the AFL boys come in and Warnie wants to come across as the old school cricketer, you see. Yep. Like doig hanging out of the gob, beer, ice pack on the knee. This is how we do it in the Aussie dressing room, all that sort of stuff. So these AFL boys come in, they make a beeline for the great man. He's going, come here, boys, come and sit down. This is how we do it. But we knew we had an ace up our sleeve because McGrath hadn't walked into the dressing room yet. And McGrath was one of these guys, you guys all know, someone in your circle that says what everyone else is thinking. That was McGrath in the Aussie dressing room, and Mark Waugh a bit earlier in the piece, right? So the great Glenn McGrath walks in, looks there, just stares, looks at Warnie sort of, you can tell he's a bit nervous by now. And then McGrath puts his baggy green up on the thing, and he just looks at Warnie in front of everyone too, ladies and gentlemen, and he says, what the hell is going on here, Warnie? And Warnie's go, what, Pidge, what? Mate, I've played cricket with you for 10 years. I've never once seen you have a beer. Well, you could see the blood drain out of the King's face. He's embarrassed. So he's got to save himself here in front of the footballers. He goes, but I always have a beer at a bowling day. And we just all start stifling laughter. And then I'm sitting with Gilly and Buff Lehman, and we get our heads together and go, right, well, next couple of times that we have a bowling day, we'll make sure the King's got a beer. So the next fielding day, so one of us raced off, can't remember who did it first time, race off, grab a beer out of the fridge, place it lovingly on the King's spot. And you see him walk in, like, after a day's play, he's just coming off the ground, and he gets to his kit, and he sees this open beer. He knows he has to drink it, doesn't he? He has to drink it. So he sits down, doigs up. It's going down like absolute razor blades. He's just cursing, goes off in a huff, has a shower and all that. We're thinking we're the funniest blokes in the world. And then next time happened, same thing, beer on his kit, and we got him. Yeah. He blew up. He had the blow up of all blow ups. And who in the effing hell keeps putting these effing beers on? And he's looking around the room and he sees Gilly, Buff and I giggling in the corner. And he gave us donuts for about 3 weeks after that. He did not even acknowledge us. He was so grumpy.
Now, Blocker, I want to ask you about the number of injuries you had. As fast bowlers, you guys were constantly injured. Not just you.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of the gig we have. For me, I think everyone has different stories, different ailments. For me, it was ability. The next bit was, it may have been, I think I had more knees. It was mainly knees, ankles for me. Yeah. So more joint related of soft tissue. And then other guys have got, Dizzie or the test too, he's also got some interesting afflictions he had, which were caused by others. But yeah, for me, it was more around joints, below your knees, ankles, but that's probably because I was a big bloke, fat. That's probably extra weight you shouldn't carry, but it's all part and parcel.
How's the body now?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, still big. But I think the main thing we get used to is injections, jabs. Yeah. That was pretty much come off, get a jab, go back on, and a bit like you do in footy, so it's no different. And once you finish your career, you just hope they don't affect you later on. But I've been lucky, touch wood, that it hasn't been too bad so far.
And Dizzie, you've carried any injuries into retirement? Like you see a lot of fast bowlers. My brother Brett, he had that many injuries. He broke his back when he was 18. He's had both ankles, broke his arm bowling, number of injuries. And he said he's starting to feel a little bit now, but it's not too bad. How's your?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I've been very fortunate. I try to keep myself as active as I can. I sort of walk every day. I try to run every other day. And I don't have any necessary ailments, from that. I did have a lot of injuries early in my career, but once I kind of learnt how my body worked and how I was able to train properly, I went through a real phase in my career where I didn't get injured. This was probably after I broke my leg in Sri Lanka. I kind of realised I probably needed to do something different. And
you broke your leg on Steve Orr's nose.
I did. I mean, there's a bit of a story there, if you'd like me to divulge.
Yes, please.
So this was 1999 in Kandy, Sri Lanka, which is in the mountains, and I was fielding at deep backward square leg. This is in Test match, and Colin Miller, everyone remember Colin Funky Miller, Swiller, Driller, Killer, Chiller, Thriller Miller? He was bowling, and Mahela Jayawardena was batting. He's swept the ball. I'm at deep backward square. Steve Orr's at short fine leg. He's running out. I'm running in. Anyone who plays cricket knows it's the bloke running in's catch.
100%. Yep.
100%. But Steve Orr's the captain, so he's right. So we collided. Everyone's come off onto the ground. Everyone goes to Steve because blood is everywhere, all over his shirt, everything. I'm writhing on the ground in agony. I didn't know at the time I'd broken my leg. I'd never broken a bone in my body. And yeah, it was pretty painful. You'd think that is the worst thing that happened that day or that week, but we got taken off the ground. Sanath Jayasuriya, who's the current Sri Lankan coach, who's now was a player at the time, he somehow had a mate who worked in the army and got us a big helicopter to come in just outside the ground, took Stephen and I to Colombo Hospital where we got repaired. Stephen's nose got straightened. My leg got fixed, and the Sri Lankan doctors did a wonderful job. And we ended up in the same room in recovering for the next couple of days. And Tugger and I just chewing the fat, we're chatting away, all this sort of stuff, and there's a knock on the door. And in walks this beautiful young Sri Lankan nurse, all the attributes that the superficial male covets. She looks beautiful, right? And she's carrying a little bowl of warm soapy water. And she said, "Mr. Gillespie, it'll be time for your sponge bath." And my eyes lit up. I'm going, how good's this? I'm looking at Stephen. He's just looking at me like, you lucky bastard.
Should have broken my leg earlier.
Yeah. And so she placed this warm soapy water on the on the bench.
You should have called the Oracle, mate. Called the Oracle.
Yeah, maybe I need to call the Oracle. So I'm thinking, how good's this? I'm thinking, this is great. So she says, look, we'll be back soon to administer your sponge bath, Mr. Gillespie, no problem. So and I say Gillespie because for Sri Lankans and Indians, English is their second language, so sometimes they have trouble with the longer names. So I've always been known as Mr. Gillespie in that part of the world.
That was Mark and Steve Vogue.
Yeah, Mark and Steve Wog, it was, really, mate, seriously. So anyway, this lady says, excuse me, I need to go out, all that. So I'm sort of pretty happy with myself at this point in time, just getting ready for my sponge bath. And then I just sort of lean over onto my side table and I just grabbed something out of the drawer and I just hear Stephen start laughing as the door's sort of opening. I turn around and there is this short, portly male nurse with a big tash. Hey, Mr. Gillespie, it's time for your sponge bath. And I will be administering. So here I am, ladies and gentlemen, thinking, oh my God. Stephen's crying, by the way. Tugger's laughing his head off here. All I'm thinking, don't get excited, don't get excited. So in essence, I had to get a sponge bath because I needed to be clean. So look, I won't. Obviously, this is a family-friendly venue, so I won't go into detail. But what I will say is that I was very clean.
Yep.
And he was very thorough.
Yes. If you've been affected by anything in this podcast, please call 1-800-569-438. Have you ever wondered, Dizzie? You said his nose hit your leg. What would happen if your nose hit his leg?
Yeah, I've often thought that.
Wow.
Yeah, I've often thought that. Yeah, it doesn't stand out that much, my nose. But yeah, I think he would have been much worse off. There's no doubt about that.
We mentioned Warney before. We've lost some greats over the recent times. Rod Marsh, you mentioned. I want to bring up another guy who was an absolute legend of Australia cricket, Andrew Simons. Absolute superstar, funny bloke. You know, he'd laugh at himself. He knew how he is. I won't say dumb as a box of hammers, but he was like, he always laughed at himself. And I remember we were in Perth and Simo's on the phone outside the hotel and he's talking to someone. They've said, where are you staying? And he says, I'm staying at the Ren des Vez Hotel. And they said, it's rendezvous, mate. But any Simo stories?
Oh, well, where do we start? Like, as you said, Simo was, sadly missed. We loved him a bit. I played under-19s with him. I went to the academy with him and fortunate enough to play international cricket with Roy. It was so much fun, but he did give us a bit of mirth because sometimes, it must be said, he got numbers and letters mixed up from time to time. So just a couple of examples. I remember Andy Bickle always tells this story. Simo, in the change rooms for Queensland, picked up one of Andy's Kookaburra bats and he's looking at it. And Bick had written the letters with Sharpie, TP, just up top near the handle. And Simo, in his way, Bick, what the hell's going on here? What's this TP nonsense on your bat? What's going on here, mate? Bick very calmly said, well, Simo, when I'm batting and I sort of face up and I look down, I start tapping my bat, I see the letters TP. And it reminds me that I've got time and to be patient. And Simo's going, that's a bit nonsense. I reckon I could do something on my bat. And I reckon I'll put SW on my bat. And Bick sort of, SW? What would you do there? He said, yeah, swing hard.
Missed it, mate, that much.
And another funny one, he was rooming with Wade Seckham. There was a Shield game in Perth. He was rooming with Chucky Seckham and they get the room key. They go in. Wade puts his bag down, gets his toiletry bag, goes into the bathroom to unpack that. Simo, straight to the bed, flops on the bed, grabs the remote control. Turns on the TV. TV goes down, radio, services, movies, adult movies, disable adult movies. Let's just say Simo's interpretation of this was very different to the hotel's interpretation of what that meant.
He was confused, wasn't he?
He was a little bit
He
confused.
thought I having sex in wheelchairs and that sort of stuff, yeah. I ask everyone who comes on Lunch with Lee the same question. I'll ask you first, Blocker. If a young boy or girl want to go into the world of sport, what advice would you give them?
Starting with the three, work hard, work hard, work hard. If it's a passion of yours, you've just got to leave no stone unturned. Don't take shortcuts. Yeah.
And Dizzie, same question?
Yeah, and look, a similar answer. I'd say give yourself the best chance. It'll always be something that I'd instill. But most of all, if it's your passion piece and it's something that, really make sure you enjoy it, because, enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, and don't focus too much on what the end result is, because that's out of your control, in essence. Control what you can. You can control working hard, that's effort. You can control all these sort of things. So I'd implore any young kids to do that, but really enjoy it, because that's ultimately what we play sport for. Number one, that's what everyone in this room's for, because we love cricket, we enjoy it. So for me, that's important.
100%. We'll wrap up the Lunch with Lee podcast now, and I just want to say, I think you've heard today, I think life's all about stories. I think when we're all gone, what do you really got left is your story. So I encourage everyone in the room not only to listen to stories like this, but to make your own stories. Don't live vicariously through your kids or social media. And, if you want to live through social media, and girls, and you want to make a sex tape like the Kardashians do and put one out with a big Afro-American basketball with a large appendage, please don't post it, because us middle-aged white males have feelings too, Thank you very much. That's it for Lunch with Lee this week. A big thank you goes out to our guests, Jason Dizzie Gillespie and Paul Blocker Wilson. Thank you to the Newcastle District Cricket Association for inviting us along to the grand final lunch. Big thank you to our sponsors, Hive Sound Studios, Red Roo Vodka, Beyond Bank, Club Charlestown, Rip It Golf, and Lee Nan Templeton. Make sure you hit follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts from. And do us a favour, hit 5 stars. And if you're there and you're passionate, please leave a review. It means a lot to us. And come check us out on Instagram at I'm@LunchWithLee. Our official Lunch with Lee photography was done by Felicity Kelly. You can find her on Instagram at Felicity Kelly Portraits. And once again, thanks to our producer, Dan McHugh. And thanks once again to the Newcastle District Cricket Association for a fantastic lunch and all the winners today. Come check us out next time on another cracking episode of Lunch with Lee. We'll see you then.